Well, here we go again. The second season of 13 Reasons Why is entirely its own monster. This time it's not based on any original book of some sort, or any original source material. Netflix is completely on its own. Now, what does Netflix do with its new freedom? Did Netflix learn from its original mistakes? Is this season even more terrible than the first? The short answer is yes, this season is much worse than the original season. However, it goes beyond just the word yes. And well, let's get into it. Whatever you thought would happen when you hear the words 13 Reasons Why Season 2 is completely different from what you actually get. I mean, just look how dramatic they made the trailer. What the hell even is this? It's almost a completely different show now. The plot is centered around the Baker family trying to sue the school, Liberty High, on the basis that they knew that Hannah Baker was being bullied and could have done something to prevent it. Throughout the show, characters are brought in to tell stories which would help either decision for the case. This is similar to how the tapes are set up, with flashbacks going back and forth, and storylines and timelines to show us a story. While this is all happening, there is another character trying to threaten the main cast into not speaking at the court, or to lie. I don't even know at this point. They even go as far as trying to kill Clay, but wouldn't this just help the Bakers? The fuck am I doing with my life? Also, Bryce Walker is now a serial rapist who has a rape cult in the school. I'm not making any of this up, by the way. And well, this season is a goddamn mess. Not even the first episode can go without being forced into this overdramatic plot with inconsistent characters. Now, the first season had the benefit of having one central focus, or at least one main plot. However, with this season, it feels like there's multiple subplots fighting to have the same value. On paper, a lot of these themes work very well. However, they're either rushed, exaggerated, or both. You don't need a rape cult plotline to teach kids about sexual assault, which you are clearly trying to do, by the way. Along with this little cult thing that's going along in the show, there's also Justin, who is a recovering heroin addict, and Tyler, who's being built up to become a school shooter. Now, I'm not saying none of the stuff in this show doesn't happen in real life, and I'm not trying to make fun of the topics here. However, the plot lines need better development. It would be best kept in, say, a movie, or at least individual movies with the topics. However, the central plot of the show would have to be the court plot, or at least with the school versus the Baker family. And the way this is presented honestly makes no goddamn sense. Rather than the school say they have no knowledge or had no knowledge of Hannah Baker's depression or potential suicide, they just kind of make Hannah Baker seem like she was a terrible person and that she deserved it. Having this in the show kind of just really feels distasteful and offensive, especially when the opposing side doesn't need to do it. The question at hand is, did the school know that Hannah Baker was hurting in some sort of way? And the answer to that is yes. So the only episode that really matters is the episode with Mr. Porter, because he is the student counselor that Hannah actually goes to. And to be completely fair, this is probably one of the better episodes of the entire series. You could also argue that the plotline involving Ryan and the poem of Hannah's that got leaked is also important, especially with the case. However, that's kind of stretching. Regardless, only 2 out of 13 episodes actually have value to what we are watching, to the essential point of the show. Who cares that Hannah noticed that the Bakers are having issues with their marriage? As a matter of fact, why is there more information that wasn't on the tapes in the first season? Don't worry, we'll get to you later. And there's also just other dumb shit that's in the show. Characters such as Marcus just kind of pop in and don't face any consequences for any of their actions that they committed in the show. And this whole all jocks are evil thing is really stupid. Like, not all rapists are athletes, right? And you also know that girls can sexually assault guys too, right? Don't get me wrong, the way athletes are treated, especially those who sexually assault women, is kind of disgusting in this country. Don't get me wrong, a conversation should be started on topics such as these. However, the amount of ignorance that plagues this show baffles me. Most of this shit is just really bad fan fiction that honestly belongs in a cringe compilation on YouTube. Remember how I said Clay was actually really interesting and had a pretty compelling arc? Well, the writers of 13 Reasons Why Season 2 thought the same thing, because they decided to give him the same exact arc from The first season. My guess is that the producers realized that Dylan Minnette really made this show, and they needed a way to get him back in season 2. However, they didn't really do it in the creative way. There's so many other directions they could have taken Clay in order to make him more interesting for the second season. However, they just choose not to, and they choose to be lazy. This is simply a step backwards for Clay's character. And if you want to have a static character in your story, that's fine. However, a good way to implement that would be good interactions. However, now Clay's interactions with the characters are just worse.
Why are these girls getting themselves into this situation in the first place?
Seriously, Clay? You're gonna blame the girls?
No, Look.
Clay now just simply feels like a worse version of himself. And in this season, the payoff is just worse. The first season ends with Clay learning from his mistakes and trying to help others who have been through similar situations as Hannah Baker. In the second season, he just kind of cries at Hannah's funeral as Ghost Hannah is there. Oh yeah, by the way, that brings me to my next point. Ghost Hannah, or whatever you want to call it, is really, really, really fucking dumb. I guess I wouldn't have too much of a problem with this. However, there doesn't seem to be any purpose for Hannah, or at least any focused purpose for Hannah. Sometimes she's a personification of Clay remembering the tapes in his head, which actually works the best in my opinion. Sometimes she acts as a sort of conscience for Clay, giving him advice. Sometimes she's a character that Clay actually talks to and has interactions with. And sometimes she just exists as like a plot device, just to cause conflict. With everything having to do with Hannah Baker feeling unfocused, it makes it seem like that she has no purpose to be in the season whatsoever. I mean, she still has a role in flashbacks, which is where she was in the first season. With the lack of explanation and the lack of focus with Hannah Baker doing this, it just kind of comes off as really offensive to the viewers who are watching this. Every other character in the show, other than Clay and Hannah, is either just as bad or even worse. These characters are either bland, offensive, laughable, or just flat out terrible. Bryce Walker feels like a villain straight out of a comic book, and it's actually kind of funny to see him on screen. It's actually hilarious to see how his posse treats him, and with all this kind of respect. He also has some of the worst dialogue in the entire show.
I mean, I know you're aware I'm sexually active.
Who wrote this?
On me last year.
Tyler might be the most offensive part of the new season. Now, to give this show some credit, Tyler actually does have believable reasons to go into a sort of depression. The show has a constant feel to go to the extreme, and that's what ruins Tyler. Tyler actually gets gang raped in the school bathroom by several jocks in a very graphic manner. Now, the audience is never given a reason to why Tyler feels that he should go after the entire school and not just the several individuals who attacked him personally. Truth be told, school shootings are a lot more complicated than people may think, and with proper planning, this probably would have came more organically. However, along with most things in the show, this did not have proper planning. Speaking of no planning, you didn't think I was going to forget about you now, did you, Zachy Poo? So yeah, apparently Hannah and Zach had this intense sexual relationship in the summer before Hannah committed suicide. Not only does it having Zach be more involved in Hannah's life kind of ruin the message taught in the first season about how the little things also matter, then this also kind of just makes Zach more of an inconsistent mess, especially when he hangs out with the jocks like Bryce and whatnot. Now, of course, there's Alex, the worst goddamn character in the show. This character is so terrible, it's actually kind of astonishing to watch him and the writers just fuck up. He's inconsistent, he's selfish, his motivations are lacking, and of course he's not helped by the fact that he's played by the worst actor in the show and has awful dialogue.
Down, Dad. Can't even go outside without people looking at me or talking about what I did.
However, the glaring problem that proceeds with most of the characters in the show is the same thing, actually. Almost every single one of these characters are completely defined by their mistakes. None of these characters are in fact characters, however, they are just templates for characters. What can you tell me about Jessica other than the fact that she's a girl who got raped? Or what can you tell me about Alex other than the fact that he's a guy who tried to commit suicide? With any of the unique qualities with the characters, they either A, don't go anywhere with these characters with it, or they take these characters to the extreme. Now it's time to talk about some of the technical aspects of the show. Surprisingly enough, some of these episodes are actually very well shot. Every episode directed by Jessica Yu is actually pretty well shot, believe it or not. There's lots of pretty creative one-takes and a lot of creative shots, especially towards the end of the show, of course, that this director is directing. Look at this shot, for example. It's beautiful. Shame that this doesn't speak for the entirety of the season, because every other episode is kind of by the numbers schlock that you would expect from a show like this. I've mentioned a little bit about the acting earlier in the video, and that it's kind of bad all around, except for like maybe 4 or 3 actors. It's obvious that some of these actors are just bad actors, despite the limitations that the script burdens these actors with. However, some of these actors does feel like that with the proper direction and writing that they could actually go places. Another awful thing that's still present throughout the show, though, is the terrible dialogue. As a matter of fact, I'd go as far as to say that it's actually worse than it is in season 1. And it's more apparent now that a bunch of 40-year-old middle-aged white women are writing the show and have no idea how kids today talk.
Juvie was good for you.
Consistently speaking, however, most of the actors do give a somewhat serviceable job, but however not necessarily doing anything with the material that they are given. There is one problem I have with the acting though, and it might seem small, but it's something that has bugged me throughout the duration of the show. Why can't any of these people fight? I'm being serious actually. There's a school fight scene towards the end of the season, and it's really bad, especially watching these actors fight. They don't even really punch each other, it's just like this weird shove. There's also some really bad dialogue throughout the fight. Like, someone called someone a coward. Like, guys don't do that, they just call each other pussies. I know it's stupid, but shit like this kind of pisses me off. Well guys, we're at the end of the line for 13 Reasons Why Season 2. This train wreck excuse of a television series has only gone deeper and further into the mistakes it's previously made. Very interesting to me to see that Netflix has actually managed to screw up even worse than they did with their first season. And honest to God, this might be one of the worst pieces of original media coming from Netflix that I've ever seen. Almost. I have absolutely no faith for the entirety of the series of 13 Reasons Why. At this point, I'm honestly left without words to describe this show. It's just awful. Thank you to everyone who's watched the entirety of this video. Sorry it was such a long wait. Part 3 will be coming out soon. And, as always, till next time.